What happens when one wrong word could cost you everything? For Adanna, mistranslating a single sentence put her in the crosshairs of Seoul's most dangerous criminals. Now the prosecutor who never loses a case, the cold, ruthless Do Hyun-woo must become the man who protects the one woman who made him feel human again. The fluorescent lights of the Seoul Central Prosecutor's office buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the translation booth where Adanna sat. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard, translating rapid-fire Korean testimony into Yoruba, then back into English for the court records. She'd been doing this for 2 years now, ever since she'd arrived in Seoul from Lagos with a linguistics degree, student debt, and a dream of making her late father proud. He'd been the one who taught her Korean, who'd fallen in love with K-dramas during his chemotherapy treatments, and made her promise to see the world he'd only seen on screen. Now she lived in a shoebox apartment in Itaewon, survived on convenience store kimbap, and translated for Seoul's legal system. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work. Until today. The witness will answer the question, a cold voice cut through the courtroom. Adanna's eyes lifted to the man standing before the witness stand, Prosecutor Do Hyun-woo. Even after months of translating his cases, he still made her breath catch. Not because he was handsome, though he was, devastatingly so, with sharp cheekbones, intense dark eyes, and the kind of presence that made entire rooms fall silent. No, what unsettled her was the ice in those eyes, the absolute absence of mercy. Do Hyun-woo didn't just prosecute criminals, he destroyed them. Witness, Hyun-woo repeated, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. You stated that Lee Sang-woo ordered the shipment. Confirm this now or commit perjury under oath. The witness, a trembling man in his 50s, stammered in Yoruba. He was a Nigerian dock worker caught in a smuggling ring, and Adanna was the only certified Yoruba translator in Seoul. He said... The man's voice cracked and he spoke in Yoruba language. Adanna's fingers flew across her keyboard. He told me to bring it inside. I thought it was legitimate cargo. But something nagged at her. The man's tone. The way his eyes had flickered toward the defendant, Lee Sang-woo, son of one of Seoul's most powerful organized crime families. She hesitated for half a second, then filed her translation. Hyun-woo's eyes scanned the screen. His jaw tightened. The witness claims he believed the cargo was legitimate. Did Lee Sang-woo explicitly tell you what was in the containers? The witness's eyes widened in panic. No, he didn't tell me. I just thought... Adanna translated quickly. Hyun-woo's gaze snapped to her booth. For one heartbeat, their eyes met through the glass. His were obsidian, cold, calculating, searching. Then he turned back to the witness. No further questions. The verdict came 3 days later. Lee Sang-woo, guilty. 20 years in prison. Adanna should have felt relief. Justice served. Another criminal off the streets. Instead, she felt the weight of something wrong pressing against her chest. She was reviewing the case files in her tiny office, really just a converted storage room, when her door opened without warning. Do Hyun-woo stood in the doorway, immaculate in his black suit, his expression unreadable. Adanna shot to her feet, her heart suddenly hammering. Prosecutors didn't visit translators. Ever. Mr. Do, she said carefully in Korean, can I help you? Your translation, he said flatly, stepping inside and closing the door behind him. From the Lee Sang-woo case, I need the original audio files. Her stomach dropped. Is there a problem? His eyes locked onto hers. That depends. Did you translate accurately? Of course, she said, but her voice wavered slightly. Hyun-woo moved closer, and suddenly her small office felt suffocating. He pulled out his phone, pressed play. The witness's voice filled the room, speaking in Yoruba. You translated this as, he told me to bring it inside. I thought it was legitimate cargo, Hyun-woo said, his voice dangerously soft. Yes. But otiso doesn't just mean he told me. In this context, it means he specifically instructed. There's implication of direct knowledge. Adanna's blood ran cold. And mo ro pi, I thought. But his tone suggests doubt, not certainty. A native speaker would catch the hesitation. You softened it. Her mouth went dry. I translated the words correctly, but not the intent. Hyunwoo's jaw clenched. Your translation gave him plausible deniability, made Lee Sang-woo look less culpable than he was. He still got convicted. On weaker evidence than we should have had. Hyunwoo stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne, cedar, and something sharp. Do you understand what you've done? It was an honest mistake, she whispered, her heart racing. Honest or not, Hyunwoo said coldly. Lee Sang-woo's family now has grounds for appeal, and when they dig into the translation, they'll find you. The room tilted. What? What do you mean? Hyunwoo's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. The Lee family doesn't lose gracefully. They'll claim the translation was deliberately wrong, that you were paid off. They'll destroy your credibility, your career, and... He paused. If they're desperate enough, they'll destroy you. Adanna's legs felt weak. You're saying I'm in danger because I made a mistake? I'm saying, Hyunwoo replied, his voice like steel, that you need protection, starting now. She refused at first. I don't need a babysitter, Adanna insisted that night, standing in her tiny apartment while Hyunwoo surveyed the space with barely concealed disapproval. This door lock is pathetic, he said flatly, ignoring her protest. Your fire escape is accessible from the street, and you have no security camera. I'm a translator, not a diplomat. Nobody's coming for me. Hyunwoo turned to face her, and the intensity in his gaze made her breath catch. 3 witnesses in Lee family cases have disappeared in the past 5 years, he said quietly. 1 was found in the Han River. The other 2 were never found at all. You think they'll hesitate because you're a woman? Because you're foreign? Adanna wrapped her arms around herself. So what do you suggest? I quit my job, leave Korea? No. Hyunwoo pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. You move to a safe house, tonight, until we confirm the threat level. A safe house? She laughed incredulously. This is insane. I made 1 translation error. That cost the Lee family their heir. Hyunwoo's voice dropped. To them, you're not a person. You're a problem to be eliminated. The weight of his words settled over her like frost. Before she could respond, Hyunwoo's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened. Pack a bag, he said tersely. Now. What? Why? Because 2 men just entered your building, and they're not residents. Adanna's heart stopped. Hyunwoo moved to her window, peering down at the street below. His jaw clenched. Back exit. Is there one? The fire escape. Too exposed. He turned to her, and for the first time, she saw something other than ice in his eyes. Urgency. Listen to me very carefully. When I tell you to run, you run. Don't look back. Don't hesitate. Understood? She nodded, frozen. Heavy footsteps echoed in the hallway outside her door. Hyunwoo moved with lethal precision, positioning himself between her and the door. He pulled something from inside his jacket, a telescopic baton. You carry a weapon? She whispered. I prosecute monsters, he said simply. Of course I carry a weapon. The footsteps stopped outside her door. A pause. Then the handle turned. Run, Hyunwoo commanded. Now. Adanna didn't think. Her body moved on instinct, grabbing her bag as Hyunwoo threw open the window. The fire escape groaned under their weight as they climbed down, the metal cold against her palms. Above them, her apartment door crashed open. Move, Hyunwoo urged, his hand gripping her arm as they jumped the last few feet to the alley below. They ran. Seoul's streets blurred past them. Neon signs, late-night vendors, couples walking hand in hand, oblivious to the terror pumping through Adanna's veins. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed, but Hyunwoo's grip kept her moving. He pulled her into a parking garage, ducking behind a concrete pillar. His chest rose and fell rapidly, but his eyes were sharp, scanning their surroundings. "Are they following?" Adanna gasped. Hyunwoo listened, silent as death. Then slowly he shook his head. "We lost them. For now." He pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. Within minutes, a black sedan pulled up. The driver, a woman in her 30s with short hair and sharp eyes, nodded at Hyunwoo. "Get in," he told Adanna. She hesitated. "Who?" "Detective Choi. She's with me. Get in." The drive was silent except for the hum of the engine and the distant sirens of Seoul's nightlife. Adanna stared out the window, her mind racing. This couldn't be real. Yesterday she'd been translating legal documents. Today she was fleeing for her life. They drove for nearly an hour, leaving the city's bright lights behind. Eventually, they turned onto a narrow road that wound into the mountains. The car stopped before a traditional hanok house, tucked away among pine trees and darkness. "This is the safe house," Hyunwoo said, stepping out. Adanna followed him inside. The house was beautiful, wooden beams, paper doors, heated floors, but it felt like a prison. Detective Choi spoke quietly with Hyunwoo near the entrance. Adanna caught fragments. 2 men confirmed, Lee family enforcers. Tracking her phone. At least 3 days. 3 days. She had to hide here for 3 days. Detective Choi left shortly after, promising to return with supplies. The door closed, and suddenly Adanna was alone with Prosecutor Do Hyunwoo. He removed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. For the first time, she noticed the tension in his shoulders, the exhaustion shadowing his eyes. "You should sleep," he said without looking at her. "I'll take first watch." "Watch," Adanna repeated. "You think they'll find us here?" "They won't." His voice was certain. "But I don't take chances." She watched him move through the house, checking windows, locking doors. Every movement was precise, controlled. This was a man who had learned to survive in a world of predators. "Why are you doing this?" she asked suddenly. Hyunwoo paused, his back to her. "Doing what?" "Protecting me. You could have assigned someone else. You're a prosecutor, not a bodyguard." For a long moment he didn't answer. Then he turned, and his eyes met hers. In the dim light, they looked less like ice and more like something wounded. "Because it's my case," he said quietly. "My responsibility, and I don't leave my people behind." "My people." Something in those words made her chest tighten. "I'm not your people," she said softly. "I'm just a translator who made a mistake." Hyunwoo's jaw clenched. "You're a witness in my case. That makes you my responsibility." But the way he looked at her suggested it was more than that. The first night was the hardest. Adanna lay on the futon in the small bedroom, staring at the ceiling. Every sound made her flinch. The wind through the pines, the creak of the old house settling, the distant hoot of an owl. She thought of her mother back in Lagos, who didn't even know her daughter's life was in danger. She thought of her father, who had been so proud when she got the translation job. "You're going to do great things, Ada," he'd said on his deathbed. "You're going to bridge worlds." She hadn't expected those bridges to lead here. Around 2 a.m., she gave up on sleep and padded into the main room. Hyunwoo sat at the low table, his laptop open, eyes scanning documents with fierce concentration. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking up. "Can you?" she countered. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I don't sleep much." Adanna sat across from him, pulling a blanket around her shoulders. "What are you working on?" "Finding a way to keep you alive." The bluntness of it made her breath catch. Hyunwoo finally looked up, and in the soft glow of the laptop, his face looked younger, more human. "The Lee family is powerful, but they're not invincible. If I can prove they sent those men after you, I can get them arrested for witness intimidation, maybe even attempted murder." And if you can't prove it? His expression hardened. Then we find another way. There's always another way with you, isn't there? She said quietly. There has to be. His voice was steel, because the alternative is unacceptable. Adanna studied him, this man who had built walls so high that no one could reach him. Why do you do this job? She asked. Prosecuting criminals, destroying lives. I don't destroy lives, Hyunwoo said coldly. I end the destruction they cause. That's not an answer. His jaw tightened. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't respond. Then he closed his laptop, leaning back against the wall. When I was 12, he said quietly, my sister was killed. Hit and run. The driver was the son of a politician. Drunk, reckless, and completely protected by his father's connections. Adanna's chest constricted. The prosecutor assigned to the case was paid off. The evidence disappeared. The driver got 6 months probation and a slap on the wrist. Hyunwoo's voice was flat, emotionless, but his eyes burned. My sister was 16. She wanted to be a doctor, and she died because someone with money and power decided her life didn't matter. Hyunwoo? Adanna whispered. So yes, he continued, I destroy the lives of people who think they're above the law, because no one else will. Silence settled between them, heavy and raw. I'm sorry, Adanna said finally, about your sister. Don't be. His voice was sharp. Just stay alive, that's all that matters now. But the way he looked at her like she was something precious, something worth protecting, made her wonder if it wasn't just about the case anymore. The second day was quieter. Detective Choi returned with groceries, and Adanna insisted on cooking. It gave her something to do besides stare at the walls and imagine every shadow was a threat. She made jollof rice with what ingredients she could find, the familiar motion soothing her frayed nerves. The kitchen filled with the scent of tomatoes, peppers, and spices. Hyunwoo watched from the doorway, his expression unreadable. You don't have to cook, he said. I want to. She stirred the pot, the rice turning a deep red. My father taught me this recipe. He said good food heals everything. Does it? She smiled sadly. Not everything, but it helps. When the food was ready, they ate in silence. Hyunwoo took his first bite, and something shifted in his expression. Not quite a smile, but close. This is good, he said quietly. You sound surprised. I am. He took another bite. I didn't expect a translator to know how to cook, she teased gently. No. His eyes met hers. I didn't expect someone in your situation to still care about things like this. Most people would fall apart. Adanna set down her spoon. My father used to say that the world only wins if you let it break you. I'm not ready to break yet. Hyunwoo studied her for a long moment. You're stronger than you look, and you're more human than you pretend to be. His jaw tensed, but he didn't deny it. After dinner, they sat on the porch, watching the stars emerge over the mountains. The night was cold, the air crisp with pine and earth. Do you miss home? Hyunwoo asked suddenly. Adanna wrapped her arms around herself. Every day. But Korea is home now, too. I can belong to both places. Can you? His voice was soft, almost wistful. Don't you belong anywhere? Hyunwoo was silent for a long time. I belong to the law. That's all I've ever had. That's lonely. It's safe. Adanna turned to look at him. In the starlight, his sharp features seemed softer, more vulnerable. Is it? Safe, I mean. He didn't answer, but the way his hand tightened on the porch railing told her everything. The third day, everything changed. Detective Choi arrived early, her face grim. We have a problem. Hyunwoo was on his feet instantly. What happened? Lee Sang-woo's appeal was fast-tracked. His lawyers are claiming the translation was deliberately falsified. They're demanding Adanna testify in person. Adanna's stomach dropped. But that's a trap, Hyunwoo finished coldly. They want to get her in the open. Detective Choi nodded. We have two options. We refuse, and they petition to have the conviction overturned, or we bring her in under protection." "Under protection?" Adanna's voice rose. "You just said it's a trap." "It is," Hyunwoo said, his mind clearly racing. "But if we refuse, Lee walks free, and then he comes, after you anyway, with no legal constraints. So I'm damned either way." Hyunwoo's expression was stone. "No, there's a third option." Detective Choi raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "I testify that the translation error was mine, that I pressured her to alter it." "What?" Adanna gasped. "No, that's insane. You'd lose your license. Your career—" "My career means nothing if you're dead." The words hung in the air like a gunshot. Adanna stared at him, her heart pounding. "You can't do that. You've worked for years. I've sent over 200 men to prison." Hyunwoo said quietly, his eyes locked on hers. "Let me save just one woman. You." Tears burned her eyes. This man, this cold, ruthless prosecutor, was willing to destroy everything he'd built to protect her. "No," she said firmly, "I won't let you." "It's not your choice." "It is." She stepped closer to him, her voice shaking. "Because I'm the one who made the mistake, and I'm the one who's going to fix it. I'll testify. I'll tell them the truth, and if they come for me, then I'll face them." "Adanna, you don't get to sacrifice yourself for me." Her voice broke. "Not when I'm just starting to understand who you really are." Hyunwoo's mask cracked. For the first time since she'd met him, she saw real fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for her. "I can't lose you," he whispered. The confession shattered something between them. "Then don't," she said softly, reaching up to touch his face. "Fight with me, not for me." For a moment, the world held its breath. Then Hyunwoo's hand covered hers, his touch warm against her skin. "Together," he murmured. "Together." Detective Choi cleared her throat awkwardly. "So, what's the plan?" Hyunwoo's expression shifted, the prosecutor returning, but his hand didn't leave Adanna's. "We go to the hearing," he said coldly, "but on our terms. Choi, I need full security detail, undercover officers in the courtroom, and I want surveillance on every Lee family member. You think they'll try something in court? They're desperate. Desperate men do stupid things." His grip on Adanna's hand tightened. "And when they do, we'll be ready." The hearing was set for the following morning. That night, Adanna couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, listening to the wind and the distant sound of Hyunwoo moving through the house, sleepless as always. Finally, she gave up and went to find him. He stood by the window, staring out at the darkness. He'd removed his tie, his shirt unbuttoned at the collar. In the moonlight, he looked less like a prosecutor and more like a man carrying the weight of the world. "You should rest," he said without turning. "So should you." "I rest when the case is closed." Adanna moved to stand beside him. "Is that all I am to you? A case?" Hyunwoo's jaw clenched. "You know that's not true." "Do I?" He turned to face her, and the intensity in his eyes stole her breath. "From the moment you looked at me through that glass booth and didn't flinch, I knew you were different. Everyone fears me. Everyone keeps their distance. But you," his voice roughened, "you saw me. Not the prosecutor, not the monster everyone whispers about. Me." Adanna's heart thundered. "And what do you see when you look at me?" "Fire," he whispered. "Light. Everything I stopped believing existed in this world." She reached up, her fingers tracing the scar on his jawline, a thin line she'd noticed but never asked about. "What happened?" "A knife," he said simply. 3 years ago. A defendant's brother tried to kill me in the parking garage." "Did you report it?" "I put him in prison." His lips curved slightly. "That was my report." Adanna shook her head, but she was smiling. "You're impossible. And you're stubborn. We're quite a pair." "Yes," Hyunwoo said softly, his hand coming up to cup her face. "We are." When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was desperate, raw, years of loneliness and control finally breaking. Adanna kissed him back with equal fervor, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. They broke apart, breathless. "After tomorrow?" Hyunwoo murmured against her lips. "If we survive." "When we survive," she corrected. His smile was real this time. "When we survive, I'm taking you on a proper date." "A date? The great prosecutor goes on dates?" "For you," his thumb traced her cheekbone, "I'll learn." She laughed, the sound bright in the darkness, and for the first time in days, fear loosened its grip on her chest. The Seoul Central Court was a fortress of glass and steel. Adanna walked through the metal detectors, flanked by Detective Choi and 2 undercover officers. Hyunwoo walked ahead, his posture rigid, every inch the prosecutor. The courtroom was packed. Journalists, legal observers, and she felt it immediately. Lee family members scattered throughout the gallery, their eyes cold and watchful. Lee Sang-woo sat at the defendant's table, his expensive suit immaculate, his expression smug. He knew something. She could see it in the way he smiled. The judge entered. Everyone rose. "Be seated. We're here to address the translation concerns raised by the defense in the matter of Seoul versus Lee Sang-woo." Lee's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, stood. "Your Honor, we have evidence that the translator, Ms. Adanna Okafor, deliberately altered testimony to bias the jury against my client." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Adanna's heart raced, but she kept her face calm. "Ms. Okafor," the judge said, "please approach the stand." She walked forward on trembling legs, feeling every eye on her. She placed her hand on the Bible, swore to tell the truth. Lee's lawyer circled like a shark. "Ms. Okafor, how long have you been a certified translator?" 2 years. "And in those 2 years, how many cases have you translated for Prosecutor Du?" "Approximately 40. 40 cases." The lawyer's smile was thin. "Quite a working relationship. Would you say you and the prosecutor are close?" Adanna's jaw tightened. "We're professional colleagues." Professional colleagues who've spent the last 3 days alone together in a mountain safe house? The courtroom erupted. The judge slammed his gavel. Adanna's blood ran cold. How did they know? She glanced at Hyunwoo. His face was stone, but his eyes blazed with fury. "Your Honor," the lawyer continued smoothly, "we have reason to believe Ms. Okafor deliberately mistranslated testimony at the prosecutor's request to secure a conviction. This is prosecutorial misconduct of the highest order." "That's a lie." Adanna's voice rang out before she could stop herself. "Is it?" The lawyer pulled out a document. "We have phone records showing 37 calls between you and Prosecutor Du in the week before the trial, late-night calls, some lasting over an hour. What were you discussing, Ms. Okafor?" Adanna's mind raced. Those calls, Hyunwoo had been coaching her on legal terminology, helping her understand the case's nuances. It was standard procedure, but in this light, it looked damning. "We were discussing translation protocols," she said firmly. "Nothing inappropriate." "Inappropriate?" The lawyer's smile widened. "Let's talk about what's inappropriate. Isn't it true that you're romantically involved with Prosecutor Du?" "Objection!" Hyunwoo was on his feet. "This is harassment." "The prosecutor will sit down," the judge warned. "Ms. Okafor, answer the question." Adanna's mouth went dry. If she said yes, the case would be thrown out. Hyunwoo's career would be destroyed. Everything they'd fought for would be lost. If she said no, she'd be lying under oath. She looked at Hyunwoo. His expression was carefully neutral, but his eyes begged her to protect herself. But Adanna hadn't come this far to hide behind lies. "No," she said clearly, "I am not romantically involved with Prosecutor Du. But even if I were, it wouldn't change the fact that my translation was accurate. Lee Sang-woo is guilty, and no amount of legal manipulation will change that truth. The courtroom fell silent. Lee's lawyer blinked, momentarily thrown. Ms. Okafor, I made a minor error in my translation, Adanna continued, her voice gaining strength. But that error didn't change the substance of the testimony. The witness confirmed under oath that Lee Sang-woo ordered the shipment, that he knew what was in those containers, and that he threatened the witness's family if he spoke. There's no record of threats, because I didn't translate it. Adanna's voice was steel now. The witness said it in Yoruba, off record, when the prosecutor had already dismissed him. He was terrified, and her voice caught. I should have reported it immediately. I didn't because I was afraid of making another mistake. That's my failure, not the prosecutor's, mine. Hyunwoo stared at her, something like awe in his eyes. Do you have proof of this alleged threat? The judge asked. I have my notes, Adanna said. I write everything down, every session. It's in my office at the prosecutor's building. The judge nodded to a bailiff. Retrieve those notes. 20 minutes later, the bailiff returned with Adanna's notebook. The judge examined it, his expression grave. These notes detail threats made by Lee Sang-woo to the witness's family. He looked at Lee's lawyer. Did your client disclose this information to you? The lawyer's face paled. Your Honor, Bailiff, take Mr. Lee into custody. We'll be adding witness intimidation to the charges. Lee Sang-woo shot to his feet, his composure finally cracking. You can't do this. My family— Your family, the judge said coldly, will be investigated for obstruction of justice. This hearing is adjourned. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Adanna sat frozen in the witness stand, her heart pounding. She'd done it. She'd told the truth, and it had held. Hyunwoo was at her side instantly. Are you okay? She nodded, unable to speak. You were incredible, he whispered. Brave and brilliant and— A shout cut through the noise. Adanna turned just in time to see Lee Sang-woo break free from the bailiffs, something gleaming in his hand. A knife. He lunged toward her, rage twisting his features. Everything slowed down. Hyunwoo moved without thinking, throwing himself between Adanna and the blade. The knife sank into his shoulder. Adanna screamed. Officers tackled Lee to the ground, but Adanna only saw Hyunwoo, blood spreading across his white shirt, his face pale but eyes still fierce. I'm fine, he gasped. I'm fine, just— You're stabbed. Tears streamed down her face. You're not fine. I've had worse. He tried to smile, but it came out as a grimace. Remember the parking garage? This isn't funny. Paramedics rushed in. They eased Hyunwoo onto a stretcher, but his hand caught hers, refusing to let go. You're safe, he whispered. That's all that matters. You're an idiot, she sobbed, gripping his hand. A complete idiot. You're idiot, he murmured. Then he passed out. The hospital waiting room was sterile and cold. Adanna sat with her head in her hands, Hyunwoo's blood still on her blouse. Detective Choi had tried to get her to change, but she'd refused. She needed to feel it, needed to remember what he'd done. He'd taken a knife. For her. Not because it was his duty. Not because she was a witness in his case. Because he loved her. The realization hit her like a wave. She loved him too. This impossible, cold, brilliant man who'd spent years building walls and had torn them all down for her. Ms. Okafor. She looked up. A doctor stood before her, his expression neutral. How is he? Her voice cracked. The knife missed major arteries. He'll need surgery to repair some muscle damage, but he'll recover fully. The doctor smiled slightly. He's incredibly lucky and incredibly stubborn. He kept insisting we let you in to see him. Relief flooded through her. Can I? Room 304, but keep it brief. He needs rest. Adanna ran. Hyunwoo's room was dim, machines beeping softly. He lay in the bed, his shoulder bandaged, his face pale but peaceful in sleep. She moved to his bedside, taking his hand carefully. His eyes fluttered open. Ada, he murmured, using her nickname for the first time. "Don't you ever do that again," she whispered fiercely. "Do you hear me? Never." "Can't promise that." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "Not when it comes to you. Hyunwoo, I love you." The words were simple, absolute. "I didn't think I was capable of it anymore, but you proved me wrong." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "You're supposed to say that when you're not in a hospital bed." "I've waited 34 years to feel this. I'm not waiting another second." His hand tightened on hers. "I love you, Adanna Okafor. Your fire, your strength, your ridiculous optimism that somehow makes me believe the world isn't completely broken." She laughed through her tears. "I love you too, even though you're reckless and stubborn and—" "An idiot?" he supplied with a small smile. "My idiot," she corrected, echoing his earlier words. She leaned down and kissed him softly, careful of his injuries. He kissed her back with gentle reverence, as if she were something precious he'd spent his whole life searching for. When they broke apart, he whispered, "So, about that date. You're in a hospital bed." "Details." His eyes sparkled. "I'm thinking dinner. Somewhere that serves excellent jollof rice. I'll cook for you." "You don't have to." "I want to." She smiled. "Someone once told me that good food heals everything." Smart. He has his moments. They sat in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, the machines beeping a steady rhythm. "What happens now?" Adanna asked. "With the case?" "Lee Sang-woo will be charged with attempted murder. His family's being investigated for witness tampering. And you—" Hyunwoo's expression softened. "You're free, safe. And you?" "Medical leave for 6 weeks, doctor's orders." He grimaced. "I hate being idle." "Good thing I'll be there to keep you busy." "Oh?" His eyebrow arched. "Doing what?" "Teaching you how to relax, how to cook, how to be human again. That's a tall order." "I'm a good teacher." Hyunwoo's smile was warm, real. "I'm counting on it." 3 months later, Adanna's new apartment was larger, brighter, with windows that overlooked the Han River. She could afford it now. The prosecutor's office had given her a raise and a commendation for her bravery. She'd also been interviewed by several news outlets, her story inspiring other immigrants to speak up against injustice. But the best part wasn't the apartment or the recognition. It was the man standing in her kitchen, trying to cook jollof rice and failing spectacularly. "It's burning," Adanna said, trying not to laugh. Hyunwoo stared at the pot in dismay. "I followed your recipe exactly." "You forgot to lower the heat." That was implied. In cooking, nothing is implied. She moved beside him, adjusting the temperature. "You have to feel it. Cooking isn't about precision. It's about instinct. I'm a prosecutor. Precision is all I have." "Not anymore." She smiled up at him. "Now you have me, and I'm teaching you how to trust your instincts." Hyunwoo set down the spoon, turning to face her. His shoulder had healed well, though he still stretched it carefully. The scar was a thin line beneath his shirt, a permanent reminder of the day he'd chosen her over everything else. "I still can't believe you agreed to move in with me," he said quietly. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because I'm difficult, demanding. I work too much. And you're loyal, brilliant, and you make me laugh." Adanna touched his face. "Plus, you took a knife for me. That's hard to top in the boyfriend department." "Boyfriend?" He tested the word, smiling. "I like that." "Good, because you're stuck with me now." Hyunwoo pulled her close, mindful of the stove. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be stuck." They kissed, slow and sweet, the rice forgotten. Later, as they ate slightly burned jollof rice on the balcony and watched the sunset paint Seoul in gold and crimson, Adanna realized something. Her father had been right. She had bridged worlds, not just through language, but through love. She'd brought light into the life of a man who'd forgotten what warmth felt like. and he'd given her the courage to stand tall, even when the world tried to break her. "What are you thinking?" Hyunwoo asked, noticing her smile. "That we make a good team. The best." He raised his glass of wine. "To translation errors." Adanna laughed, clinking her glass against his. "To translation errors, and to the prosecutor, who became my home." "And to the translator," Hyunwoo murmured, his eyes soft with love, "who translated my cold heart into something capable of feeling again." They sat together as night fell over Seoul, two souls from different worlds who'd found each other in the chaos. And in that moment, everything was exactly as it should be. But their story isn't over. What if Hyunwoo is hiding a dark secret? What if the Lee family returns for revenge? What if someone from Adanna's past in Lagos comes to Seoul with dangerous intentions? Comment now, type Part 2. If you need to know what happens next, type your favorite moment from this story below. And don't leave without subscribing for more Afro-Korean romance stories every week. Turn on notifications so you never miss an episode, like if Hyunwoo taking that knife for Adanna made your heart stop, and share with someone who loves epic love stories. Thank you for watching, and see you in my next story.